Hello and welcome back to the Study Legal English YouTube channel. My name is Louise. Welcome if it's your first time here. Welcome back if you are a regular. Today we're looking at quite an exciting topic. We're going to be covering 10 phrasal verbs that you as a lawyer should know. If you use these, you're going to sound more fluent. So stick with me because at the end we're going to do a quick quiz after we've learnt these phrasal verbs, and there you can test your knowledge and hopefully you will have learnt something by watching this video. So before we dive in, please like this video if you do indeed like it. It helps me know what content you do indeed like. Subscribe to my channel because that helps me to show you the content that I have. You get notified when I post new content. And do me a favour, please share this with a friend, a colleague. Share it on social media. This will help me to grow my audience and to reach people who could benefit from my YouTube channel. All right, thank you. So let's go. First of all, let's look at what 10 phrasal verbs are we looking at today. So number 1, enter into. Number 2, to set out. Maybe you've heard some of these, right? Number 3, to carry out. If you've been watching my YouTube videos on make and do collocations, you will have come across carry out. To deal with, to take over, to look into, to put forward, to rule out. Number 9, to bring about. Number 10, to give rise to. Okay, let's dive in and look first of all at to enter into. Okay, to enter into, what does it mean? It means to formally agree to or to initiate a legal contract or arrangement, okay? An example sentence is the two companies entered into partnership agreement. The parties entered into an agreement. The parties entered into a contract, okay? Let's look at number 2, to bring about. What does it mean? To bring about means to cause or facilitate a change or result, to make something happen, okay? An example sentence is, the new law brought about significant reforms related to data collection, okay? The new law brought about significant reforms. It created reforms, it made reforms happen, okay? All right, let's look at the next one. Number 3, to deal with. You probably would have heard this before, hopefully, because it's super common, okay? To deal with means to handle something, to do something, to address something. Of course, for you as lawyers, it's likely going to be a legal matter or an issue, but it doesn't have to be, okay? To deal with can be used in a wide range of contexts, okay? And let's look at an example sentence. The solicitor will deal with the client's inquiries. The solicitor will deal with the client's inquiries. Pay attention that to deal is an irregular verb. So to deal, dealt, dealt, okay? So the past participle and the past simple are both dealt, okay? So you just put a T on the end, so it's quite easy. Okay, let's move on to number 4, to put forward. To put forward, this means to propose or to suggest something, an idea, an argument, a solution, okay? An example sentence could be, I recently put forward the idea of using more legal tech in our law firm. However, we will need to do a cost-benefit analysis to see if it could be worth it. You know, is it worth getting the legal tech or not? I put forward the idea of using it. I proposed the idea, but we need to look into the matter more. And put is another irregular verb, of course, you probably know it, okay? Put, and in the past put, and the past participle put as well, okay? Next one, number 5, to look into. To look into. This means to investigate, to examine, to look at something in detail, okay? To look at a situation, a matter. whatever it is. Okay, an example sentence is the company is looking into allegations of misconduct. They're looking into it. It's quite vague, okay, the meaning. We don't really know if they are, completely conducting an investigation or whether they've just started to, read emails about it. Okay, so you can actually use this when you want to be vague. Okay, we're looking into the matter, meaning we are dealing with it in some way. We are checking, we're looking, maybe we're investigating. It has quite an ambiguous meaning. Let's move on. Set out. To set out something. This means to explain or to describe something in detail. And for you, this is usually going to be in a legal document. Something will be set out in a legal document, probably. An example sentence is, the contract sets out the terms and conditions clearly. The contract states them, it describes them, the terms and conditions are written in the contract, okay? Set is another irregular verb, okay, and it is set, 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 a bit like put. We don't conjugate it when we change to the past simple and to the past participle. Okay, so it would be, yesterday I set out the terms in the contract and I have set out the terms in the contract, if you're using the past simple and the present perfect there, okay? Let's move on to 7, to carry out. To carry out. What does it mean? So I mentioned this at the beginning. You will have seen this phrasal verb if you've watched my videos on make and do collocations, because very often carry out is used by lawyers instead of saying do, okay? It means to execute or perform an action or duty, okay? And it's got a more formal feeling than using the verb to do. So let's look at an example sentence. The company agreed to carry out the audit by the end of the month. You carry out an audit. You can carry out research. If you're looking for other examples of carry out, there are examples in my make and do videos. Let's move on to number 8. To rule out. To rule out. To rule out means to exclude, to dismiss something as a possibility. It's like not possible. You're making something impossible. An example is, the seller wants to rule out having to pay damages over a certain amount and is insisting on a cap of £10 million. There's quite a lot of information in that phrase, okay? The seller wants to rule out, the seller wants to make it impossible that they will in any situation have to pay damages, to pay compensation above a certain amount. Okay, they want to limit the amount of damages that they pay. So they are making a cap, they're setting a limit on damages. Probably writing it in a contract, okay? Let's move on to number 9, to give rise to. To give rise to. This means to lead to or to cause something, often a legal issue or a dispute to happen, okay, to cause this thing to happen. An example sentence is, the breach of contract gave rise to a lawsuit. The breach of contract led to a lawsuit happening. If there wasn't that breach of contract, there would not have been a lawsuit. Okay, the lawsuit followed naturally on because there was a breach of contract. Of course, to give is an irregular verb. You should know this one because, of course, to give is one of the most common verbs that we use in English and in any language, I imagine. So to give, gave, given. So let's move on to number 10, to take over. It's our final one, to take over. What does it mean? We've got 2 definitions here, okay? The first one is to assume control or responsibility for something. The second one is in mergers and acquisitions, Okay, in M&A, if you're an M&A lawyer, for example, to take over means where one company acquires control of another company because they purchase a part of it, they purchase shares, assets, okay, or maybe both of those. So let's look at some example sentences. The first one is, the new team took over the litigation process, meaning that they took control, they took responsibility of it. For the second meaning, the large corporation plans to take over its smaller competitor to consolidate its position in the industry. They plan to buy shares, okay, or to buy assets maybe of the company so that they can get rid of their competitor, it sounds like. Okay. All right. I hope that you've been paying attention because now we're going to do a quick quiz. I'm going to give you some phrases. Okay. So first of all, we're going to do 5 phrases and then we're going to do another 5. And you're going to have these sentences. You've got gaps. Okay, you've got the options there, so you can choose from the options. You need to fill in the gaps in the sentences with the correct phrasal verb. You need to conjugate it correctly, okay, according to tense, if you think it makes sense. Okay, all right, let's go. It sounds quite difficult. Let's go with the first one. The parties agreed to something, a confidentiality agreement, before starting negotiations. Okay, the parties probably agreed to sign a non-disclosure agreement so that the negotiations would be confidential. Okay, number 2, the new policy, something, numerous changes to the company's compliance practices. Okay, the new policy made changes happen. Okay. All right, number 3, the lawyer was asked to something, the dispute, and suggest possible solutions. The lawyer was asked to handle the dispute. Okay. All right, number 4, the claimant's lawyer, a potential solution to resolve the matter. The claimant's lawyer proposed, okay, like a solution. All right, number 5, we need additional time to the matter in more detail, to examine, to analyze. Okay. Let's see if you've got any of these correct. We'll go through these answers and then we're going to do 5 more. Okay. So the parties agreed to enter into, okay, the new policy. Here, you could keep it in the present tense. Okay. The new policy brings about numerous changes to the company's compliance practices. You could also say brought about. All right. Number 3. The lawyer was asked to deal with, okay, to handle, to deal with. All right. Number 4, the claimant's lawyer, I said, this is like a synonym of propose. The claimant's lawyer put forward, okay, to put forward a potential solution. We need additional time to check, to examine, to look into the matter in more detail. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next 5. I hope that you got some of these correct. Let's go ahead here. All right. So obviously the ones that we've already used, they're not going to come up here. So you can probably cross out the ones that we've already used. Okay. But you've got your options there at the top. Okay. Number 6, the document clearly, the responsibilities of both parties. I should give you a clue here. Okay. It states. Okay. Number 7, the firm plans to the merger process by the end of the quarter. The firm plans to do the merger process. Okay, this is a phrasal verb that we can use instead of do. Number 8, we are something, the possibility of mediation, as the other party is not cooperative. We don't want to do mediation. It's simply not possible to do it because the other party isn't cooperative. Okay. All right, number 9, an ambiguous clause in the contract. A legal dispute between the two parties. An ambiguous clause in the contract led to, okay, made something happen as a natural consequence, made the legal dispute happen, okay? Number 10, after the acquisition, the new management team will operations immediately. They will have the responsibility of these operations. Okay. All right. Let's see. Have you got any correct? Let's have a look. So the document clearly sets out. Make sure that you're conjugating these phrasal verbs correctly. The firm plans to carry out the merger process, okay? To do a task, to complete a task. We are ruling out the possibility of mediation. Okay, you need to use your present continuous there because we are doing something. We're currently in the process of saying that mediation is not possible. Okay. An ambiguous clause in the contract led to, it gave rise to, okay, a legal dispute between the two parties. You could use the present tense here, okay, an ambiguous clause in the contract gives rise to a legal dispute, but I can't really think of a situation when you would use that, when you'd actually say that in using the present tense. You could maybe talk about a fact, okay? If you want to talk about a fact and you're saying an ambiguous clause in the contract will give rise to a legal dispute between the parties, or maybe you want to be more hypothetical and say an ambiguous clause in the contract could give rise to a legal dispute, okay? So there are probably a few different options in terms of how you're conjugating that. All right, number 10. After the acquisition, the new management team will take over, okay? Will take over operations immediately. You're talking about the future, okay? Once the acquisition has happened in the future, then something is going to happen. It will happen, okay? All right, so great job, everyone, I hope. How many did you get correct? Be honest. Let me know in the comments below. And again, why don't you try to use these phrasal verbs in a sentence, or leave a comment and try to use one of these phrasal verbs to practice using it, okay? Of course, if you practice these, you're much more likely to be able to use them in reality, okay? So, finally, thank you for watching today. I hope that you learned something new. I hope you learned some of those collocations. Don't forget to visit my website, studylegalenglish.com. Follow me on Facebook. You can find me at the Study Legal English Facebook group. You can find me on Instagram at Legal Englisher. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, leave a comment, and remember, share it with a friend. That would be fantastic. All right, thanks for watching and see you next time.